Hi, everybody. This is Andrew. I'm going to do a short video on risk management today. What I'm finding many CEOs and companies have holes in this area. It's not something that's always completely thought through. So we'll kind of look at some traditional risk and maybe some not so traditional as well. So when we talk about risk management, we're always starting with the premise, let's protect the downside. Warren Buffett and his number one rule, keep a margin of safety, always have a backup plan. What happens when things get bad? So on the accounting front, risk management is first and foremost. Let's make the books audit proof. Let's have tight internal controls, corporate governance. We're going to prevent audit and theft just through our basic accounting policies and controls. Once that foundation's in place, some of those time bombs are diffused, then we can add value with proactive cash flow improvements, tax planning, wealth building. Let's just jump right in to this and let's talk about right off, what can you insure? So this is normally we all think about, okay, we've got a risk, let's insure it. Here's the normal things we talk to our insurance providers about: property insurance for inventory, auto, fixed assets, our real estate. If you sell products, product liability insurance is very, very important. General liability policy for accidents. We have workers' compensation, all of us, if we have employees. Health insurance, that may be as a yes or a no. E&O insurance, errors and omissions for negligence, claims due to mistakes or failures to perform on us. So they protect us if we make a mess up in some way and our customer or vendor sues us. We have that. And then we can get business interruption insurance around, say, there's a big flood or Hurricane Sandy or whatever comes in and knocks you out for a month. We find most of these policies don't, on the business interruption, they either provide you not a ton of money, like probably not everything you're going to lose if you actually were shut down for a month or 2 months. The deductibles are high. They don't start on day one. And even if you have to go to a new place, it may or may not be cover all of it. So be very wary on those policies. But again, that's your basic insurance. But what else should we talk about around risk? So again, protecting your downside, making sure you've thought through every single thing that could go wrong. Because for many business owners, one key risk right off the bat is your business is pretty much everything. It's got all of your wealth tied up in it. And so you've got to really think through and make sure nothing bad happens. So here are some other things to think about outside of normal business insurance. So commodity prices. Two businesses I've been in have had a lot of tie to this. So both hemp, CBD, and also oil and gas tied to commodity price, huge risk. So I worked in oil and gas for 10 years and natural gas, and price would be just a huge factor in whether or not our business did well, but whether we could hire employees or add or have to cut back. We had wild price swings. Again, global or national emergencies, we're seeing this all the time with hurricanes. We're in the middle of the coronavirus right now, and that's shutting down China pretty much completely. They've got a huge number of people quarantined. They are the global supplier for just about everything, whether it's Apple phones or the medicines we take. And so that's having a big impact on many, many businesses. You can have a key executive die. A lot of times we don't think about those insurance policies, or not even a death, just someone, our chief operating officer, who's got all the knowledge in his head, just walks out the door and goes to a competitor or starts his own business or whatever. Lack of operating SOPs. We have these great procedures and policies, but they're just not written down somewhere where if someone leaves, we can easily replace it. HR and employee claims and lawsuits, these can be really big. You can't just insure for these kind of things. So there's not really like, oh, I'm going to get an insurance policy for sexual harassment or whatever. You need to consider those kind of things. Theft and fraud is a real issue. Many, many companies are defrauded or stolen from. And then finally, mean tigers and black swans. So I mentioned mean tigers. Both of these come out of Nissim Taleb book, The Black Swan, which is a great business book if you haven't read it. And so a lot of risk, this goes around risk assessment. So we talk about the Mirage Casino in Las Vegas. They are assessing risk every which way. They have huge teams of people looking at this. And so one of their key risks is around card cheaters or people stealing money from them. They've got tons of cash going in and out. So they've got all kinds of controls and insurance around those policies, but they might miss a risk that they didn't consider. This actually happened. So I'm going to read from this. The Mirage lost about $100 million when Roy Horn of Siegfried and Roy was maimed by his tiger in a performance. The incident was so unexpected that while the insurance had been purchased for the tiger leaping into the audience, none had been thought necessary for a performer who allowed the tiger to sleep in his bedroom. So no one even considered the possibility that the tiger might hurt Roy and shut them down. And 100 million is probably not even a correct number for that loss, because it basically ended the show, which was one of the most successful shows of all time in Vegas. And so it's, again, thinking outside the box around your business. What could happen to you to make your business shut down, or a sudden loss of customers, or a sudden loss of suppliers? So that brings us to Black Swan. It's defined as a highly improbable event that has extreme impact. And so where we need to be focused on there is more the impact and not the likelihood, because turns out black swans can actually occur a little more frequently than we've all been led to believe. And so you need to at least think through what happens if something that is highly improbable and has some catastrophic effect on our business. What am I going to do if that happens? At least think that through. So how do we mitigate some of these risks? So on commodity prices, we can use hedging. We can put in place hedging stress around oil and gas. You can buy futures to lock in a price for your production. You can take a lot of volatility out of those price swings. Whenever you're hedging, you need to be very, very careful you don't fall into speculation, because when you're talking about futures, you can actually hedge the actual production you're going to produce, but you can also speculate. And it's easy for a CEO to think, I know where oil prices are going. I'm in the industry. I'm going to speculate a little bit, and it can turn out very badly. So be very careful of that. Global national emergencies, hurricanes, viruses. The best protection of this is what I call dry powder. Have money in the bank. We like to see people with liquid assets, and not just the stock market, because that can crash as well in a global emergency. So cash, big reserves of cash, 6 months to, I've had clients that have had over a year in the bank. They want to know that if something horrible happens and they're down for 6 months, or they lose customers for 6 months, quit buying for whatever reason, they've got that dry powder. Key executive death, you can buy life insurance. Also, again, job descriptions written exactly what is that CEO or COO or CFO doing. So if they're gone, they die, whatever, they can be replaced. Same on the key person not replaceable. We want to make sure we have those documented job descriptions, and also their contacts and their network and what exactly they're doing. Lack of operating SOPs. We want to make sure we have written SOPs and internal control documentation, which includes accounting policies and procedures. Many companies do not have that. Put those in place. HR and employee claims and suits. You need to have very strong HR policies, a good HR manual that includes every possible types of discrimination, sexual harassment, open door policies, those kind of things. A detailed org chart. Who's in charge of what, how performance reviews are done, how things can get reported. All that needs to be thought through. We like to see somebody in charge of that department. Same for compliance issues. We want to have compliance policies, whether it's state, OSHA, FDA, whatever, and also org chart as well. Who is in charge of HR and compliance? What reports do they bring us every quarter to make sure we are in compliance? And then finally, on mean tigers and black swans, how do you protect against that? Well, first off, if it's the mean tiger, that's more of a thing that, that's obvious, a thing they should have thought about in Las Vegas. What happens if something happens? It didn't have to be a tiger. It could have been Roy getting hit in a car and dying. So they need to think through what happens if one of these guys dies, and how can we insure for it? For your business, it could be something totally different. These are things that may not be hugely out of the norm. Great example is this virus we're seeing right now. So it hadn't shut the world down, but if you make any kind of parts or whatever, you may be experiencing suppliers issues right now. You may not be able to get your production up. You may lose customers because people aren't traveling, or they're not spending money, or they're pulling back right now. And so again, make sure you have the dry powder for that type of situation. For black swans, what is your plan for that, and how can you stop against some kind of complete catastrophe? And where I would relate that with this current virus, say this virus explodes and it literally hits half the world's population and millions of people die and suppliers go down and China shuts down. What can you do? I mean, other than dry powder, and just be aware that those possibilities can happen and how you can pull back. You can't insure every last thing. At the end of the day, can you put sizable capital in the bank, stock up on guns, food, and water? Do you have life skills? You can use prayer, whatever will help you get through the situation. But just know those things can occur, and make sure that you're not leveraged so heavily, either in your time or finances, that if something bad does happen, you can go from a good business to out of business in a very short period of time. All right. Thanks for listening in. Oh, forgot my last slide. I'm going to put up here. If you want to learn more about risk and other things you might not be getting from your accountants and advisors, you can book a free call here at www.ceocfos.com/book-call, or you can email me at andrew@cfoben.com. Thanks.